welcome back to another episode of All About Moments. I am
Yes.
here.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, I am here joined with my lovely co-hosts, Mary and Abby. And we are so happy to have you all here today. Ladies, let me ask you, how do you keep things spicy in your relationships? Yep, I just dive right on in.
Mhm. You don't
Not
want us to
even,
introduce ourselves a little
not even
bit?
an
Like,
Sure, go
introduction.
ahead. Go ahead.
I'm Mary Matt. Okay, Abby.
I'm Abby, Princess Abby. Uh, you see those faces? I love those face expressions. So that was true expressions right there. But I'm Abby. Nice to meet you all. Very excited to be here tonight. Tonight, tomorrow, today, afternoon, evening, wherever you're located.
Catch the replay.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Amen. All right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's get into it. Today's topic is drop it like it's hot because that's what we're gonna somewhat be talking about. And how do we spice up our relationships, our romantic relationships in our marriages or with our partners? Let's talk about it. Let's get into it.
Well, let's see. What's one thing you've done to drop it like it's hot in your relationship?
Now, my thing, I have a question. There's different types of times when things happen. I just want to make sure I understand this question.
Well, I guess since you're married, would you say that you had different ways that you kept the spark in your relationship when you were like dating versus when you're married?
Wow. Um,
How do you keep it?
how do I keep it spicy? I like to, for me, I think a big thing is just keep surprises going. I think that's a big thing. I think during the time when we have the corona and all that, that virus, that's the word I use right now.
COVID. Nigga.
Okay. Thanks
Okay.
for telling me the
But
right
that's what we
word.
used to call it, the Rona, right?
Exactly. We was
Oh,
used to
no.
Rona, right? I think one way really that really triggered for things to start getting spicy because you didn't go out a lot during that time period. But doing dates, whether it's at home or outside, doing some little dating time. Another thing to spice it up is have some cards or games, blindfolds. That's a nice one. I can't tell y'all how that works, but try blindfolding your man and then just try whisper in his ear. Just start going down by there. Because the thing is, I watched somewhere that if you sometimes remove certain senses, your other senses hype up. You know,
Mhm.
it did the trick. What about you, Aisha? I'm gonna stop talking. I feel like I'm saying too much.
But we all know relationships take work. We don't want it to be boring in your relationship. So today we're talking more like what keeps the passion alive. We don't want a routine, same old relation type of love life. We want to spice it up some. We want to keep our partners on edge a little bit, like you mentioned, like blindfolded and stuff like that. So I guess how to keep the spark over time so that we can get to that part. I think to me it's just being more intentional before we get to the fun stuff. You want to have a deep conversation with them, a heart to heart where you're feeling more vulnerable to keep the spark where you can do those flirty little things or get the card games and stuff like that. So I think that's more of the root of it, of keeping the spark in your relationship because it's important. I just don't want to be doing this stuff to be doing it. It's just, we got to keep it alive.
I definitely agree that depending on as you are in relationships and the longer that you're in relationships, that your sex
Mhm.
life does change. It's hot and heavy in the beginning, and you can't keep your
Yeah.
hands off each other, right?
Right.
And as the longer that you are with each other, it may start to decrease a little bit. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes our expectations for our sex life, we kind of have certain expectations and it's not realistic, right? And that,
Right.
and that's where we need to communicate with our partners, right? We are feeling that our needs are not being met or that we're not having enough sex or sometimes we're having too much sex, that can also be an issue. I mean, I don't know who has that problem, but hey, we're putting
Mhm.
out there that you need to communicate. And I think obviously you can't expect what what you had when you first met is going to be the same thing when you have been in this relationship for 10 years.
Think a little different though, because me personally, you might not be able to move your body as much, but I feel like if you're that type of person, you really like it spicy, even if you get older, I think you can still find some ways to, you know, I don't think it per se has to decrease the amount of times you do it, you know?
Mhm.
I,
Be
I don't know.
creative. Yeah.
That's what I'm
Mhm.
thinking. In the bedroom, I feel sometimes you could just send some amazing text messages all day to your partner at work. Spice
Yes.
up. So you've already preset the stuff, you know? To me, that's like a little bit of a nice foreplay.
Hey, Mary.
No, I was gonna say, let's be clear when we're talking about sparking up your sex life versus like intimacy and foreplay. So we're talking about penetrating sex. We're talking about like intimacy can include like penetrating sex, but intimacy can also be like hugs and kissing and cuddling, right? That's also intimacy, right? But when we're talking about like sex, we're also talking about penetrating sex, right?
So which one are we talking about here? Because I feel like I'm talking about both.
Well, I am talking about how to keep the spice in your relationships. And we
Oh,
will eventually get there about what you can do
okay, that
because once
intimacy.
you have that foundation of intimacy and you have the foundation of emotional intimacy, or you have the foundation of just allowing yourself to be deep with your partner, then that creates love languages, that creates a safe place for them where you then can begin to spark up or keep the spark in your relationship, doing daily check-ins or doing date nights and keeping that up and sending those flirty, not nasty, but those text
We know
messages,
how
man,
you roll.
they can be spicy. I definitely surprise dates, just things that will keep you on their mind. That's basically what it is. That's my goal, honestly, is just to send you things to make you wanna hurry up and come home, and then we could get down like Mary talking about,
Mhm.
well, Mary's like if
Yeah,
we wanna put the lime in the coconut for sure, but to me, I like when there's a little build up to it, you know? Yeah, a
Like
little
foreplay.
foreplay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
mhm.
Little sweet kisses during the day, little messages, different things like that, some flowers and, just different things to kinda help, "Oh, you finna get it tonight." Something like that.
Yeah.
That's
No.
what keeps the spark in your relationship. That's what makes you wanna drop it like it's hot.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then we know environmental factors and there's also like
Mhm.
medical conditions and mental health things that also
Mhm.
get in the way. And so how do you deal with those things? If there's kids, if there's medical stuff that gets in the way, if there's other family issues outside of the issues within, your main family that, are causing you guys to kind of not be able to have as much intimacy as you would love to have that intimacy.
I'm curious to let you answer that question first, actually, because I know, let's be realistic here. I feel like you were married longer than all of us. I know that you're no longer, but you're still in relationships. Just because you're not married, you still have a relationship.
Movie. What are
Yes,
you talking about? Like,
Mary.
so what's my question? How do you deal with all those stressors in life?
Yeah, like with work, scheduled intimacy.
Yes, how do you deal
Mm.
with that?
Well, that's why we're not together.
Mm.
Okay. Because I communicated, but that other person didn't communicate. The other person didn't communicate to me when they felt disconnected with me because I started working and I started school. So instead of communicating so that I could work on pulling in and scheduling things that need their more, they decided to pull away, which just caused more disconnect.
Did you do check-ins? Did you make it a priority to do date nights? Was that something I know school was important to you, but did you make your relationship just as important? Do you feel like at sometimes you may have dropped the ball with that?
I think that's a really good question. There's things I definitely could have done better. Ways
Yes.
that I tried to connect, particularly because I was in grad school. was
Yeah.
and it wasn't quality time, but I would try to do homework with him in the room so that we could watch TV and talk while I was doing homework. So it wasn't like I was doing homework in a whole nother room and he just
Right.
so that was ways that we could, study or write an assignment but still talk to him while he would be watching TV. He was never a person that planned evenings. I had to be the one to plan it. But if my mind is busy, I'm not gonna let me forget.
Forget.
Yeah,
Right.
forget. That is not gonna happen. So
Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty. It takes two to tango, and I think one thing is that planning. I think both parties have to plan in their own unique way. I feel somebody like Mary is more detail oriented, right? And then if you have somebody who's not, it's still okay if you just plan something ad hoc. But I think both parties should at least, or one is willing to try. Because Mary said if it wasn't in her mind, he didn't think of it. And that's not fair, in my opinion. I think it has to be in both people's minds. But again, everyone has their own personality, how they plan it or how they feel intimacy should work.
And for me, it's about connection. I feel like I'm with this person and we have decided to be together and to make a relationship, to love each other, to put each other first. I would say before, of course, it's God and then your person. So it's more about connection, just making that deep connection, making sure that we have does some heart to heart. It's definitely that physical part is cool, but just making sure like we're on the same page when it comes to what's going on here. And then that can lead me into the compliments, the date nights, the playfulness, and different things like that, since we are talking about, spark and spice in the relationship. Because once you set that foundation of being honest with your partner and have I keep going back to heart and deep connection because that's what it is, honestly. That's what you're talking about. You're not talking about the woes and the common struggles. You're talking about you and your person, what we got going on. And that's what is going to make us stay together, stay connected. I remember meeting this lady when I was in my 20s, and she had just had been married for some time. And I was like, "What keeps you and your husband together? What is she said, "Me and my husband connect every morning." And she was like, whether that's we pray together, intimate praying together, whether we are physically connecting, like we set that time to connect and we connect together. And I thought that was so beautiful because that sets the foundation. Because then that connection they did that morning, he gonna be thinking about her for the rest of the day. She gonna be thinking about him for the rest of the day. They're gonna want to talk about what happened. They're gonna want to share things what happened. Okay, all right, ladies. Mary, you got another question for us?
yes, that was a really good point that you brought up. Just taking that time out because their days can be really busy. And
Yes,
these little short moments of connectivity are really important.
yes, and that's your. I want to connect with him. We need to connect.
What happens when one partner wants more spice than the other?
At the end of the day gonna end. Okay, and our sister Gorilla told us that. But at the end of the day, keeping the spice alive is it's all about effort. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be small. It just has to be intentional.
You said it doesn't have to be big or small.
Yeah, it doesn't right. It doesn't have to be big. Cause you said what happens if one person wants it or not. Like I feel like isn't it the question? Am I answering it right? Or maybe I'm putting a different spin on it.
Exactly.
I think the thing too is sometimes you're not always on 100, right? But your partner might be. So sometimes they have to pour into you to motivate you to spice things up. And sometimes, even if they don't, you can start it to help them out. Like
Yes.
for me, I know one thing that's helped me out is even if we're watching a movie, I don't like the movie or he doesn't like the movie. If we fall asleep, as long as we tried. So even if I
Effort.
fall asleep, exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Because even I watch it, you tried.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna finish my movie because I've already
Exactly.
started it, or he would too. But you tried,
Yes.
Okay.
you
It's
know.
effort.
Let's give an example of like the way someone may talk about spicing things up. So let's talk about they want to bring in a sex toy. and the other partner is
Oh,
not really interested in bringing this in sex.
I don't have that issue because I don't use those.
But this is what we're talking about. Like, what happens if one partner wants it more
Oh,
spicy
okay.
than others?
Okay, not my
With it.
relationship. Okay,
No,
because I don't need those in mine.
I
Have
mean, you don't know. You don't know you don't
no,
need it until you know you don't need sex toys, and
the thing is, if you've seen it before and you know the type of partner you have, I would
sex toys.
say, but
We do it in different types, right? Everybody needs you out for different types of sex toys.
but
right, I mean, from grande to very, very
Like,
to like a feather,
there's
like a little
different types of
feather
sex
over their
toys.
body. Yes.
Yeah, we're not talking about just the other.
if a
No, we're
blindfold
talking.
is
Yeah.
considered a sexer, then maybe
Okay,
do
that's a
that.
tool that
Blindfold is
y'all
not a
use. A
sexer, you
whip,
guys.
a
No,
whip,
it's not a sex
that's a
toy.
Yeah, we're talking about whips. There's so
yeah,
many.
That's why I took pause. I was like, you guys have a really big toy drive.
toy drive.
I think that's the best way to say you guys have a very nice collection, but I don't think not everyone needs it. And honestly,
No,
and also I think too it depends on. I don't want to put culture into this, but some places don't cultures don't have that at all. You know,
yeah. But what I'm saying is, what happens when one partner wants more space than the other? And let's say that other
that's
partner
what.
says that they want to bring that into the relationship. Because yes, it can be a culture having. I'm not saying, but just because you come from that culture doesn't mean someone can steer away from that culture and then decide, hey, I'm interested in this now.
Well, let me let Aisha because I've told you guys my. Think you guys just don't believe what I said. I said it that one person, for instance, you just if one person, the other person has to help pour into them. That's what I was saying. I sit up. Spice it up could be like you watch a movie together and try to, hey, let me show you this movie that might help us out a bit, or hey, let's just watch something together, or cuddle together.
Well, I think you're missing the conversation.
No, I think you are a little. I didn't know my friends are a little more of a freaky leak than I thought, so I'm going
Come
to
on,
mute
come on
myself.
now, come on now, Abby.
I
Come
mean,
on
don't
now,
mean I'm
Abby.
not,
You've been
but
there
you
longer than
know,
me. But this is what I will say. And it
eh,
and I'm just gonna go back to the foundation of your relationship. And if you feel comfortable sharing with your partner, y'all are at a point where you can say, hey, I'm kind of interested in this, or I found something today
a
that I want to
toy.
present.
Or
It
whatever.
doesn't have to be
Whatever.
a toy, Abby. It could
You
be
guys
a
will introduce it
tool.
like as
It
if
could
you're in a
be
business
something.
deal. I have a
Yeah, I
proposition
mean,
for you. I'm gonna bring you this long thing, and let's see what happens.
okay. Yeah, come to me in a calm way. Don't just I mean, if you're gonna present something to somebody, you don't know how they're gonna take it, whether they be cool to come out of a bag. Yes, if we're gonna
Oh,
do something, whether we're in the store together or we're in a car, say, "Hey, can you drive with me here?" And then maybe we could choose them together. Or it's something I saw, I just wanna da 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 da. And when I say sex toys can also be something as lingerie, that is also considered as a sex object. So if you putting on lingerie, Abby, for your husband, then you're actually using sex toys.
Okay.
well, that means
Anyway.
Victoria's Secret is full of all sex toys. Then
Exactly.
But I think it's also important to state is just because you're married doesn't mean that you still don't have to set boundaries. If there's something that you're not comfortable with, this is why it's important to know your partner, spouse, or partner. If you're not comfortable with something, then you can still say, "Oh, I'm not comfortable with that," and that's okay. And your partner should respect that, right? Sex still does exist in marriages, right?
it
Or in
does.
relationships. And so I do want to put that out there. We talking about spice and spicing things up. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, right? In a relationship. So we're still talking about consensual intimacy, consensual sex within a relationship. But yes, I agree with Aisha as in just come to your partner and talk to them about it and say, I have this thing that I'm very interested in. How do you feel about it? Would this be something that you would want to try out? And just bring it to them. And I think as the other partner that's listening, just keep an open mind. Ask questions.
I
All right.
agree.
All right.
I feel like this has to be like a two-part. There's no way we're finishing this.
I agree it does have to be a two-part. I think we got some more to say. I think
Well,
we
my
do.
final thought is I have a challenge or two for you all, for all of our listeners. Flirt with your partner more. It could be a simple text, it could be meeting them somewhere or giving them a simple look or touching them or making sure that they feel connected to you in some type of way. That is my challenge to you all to do that.
And I have another challenge for you. My
Another
challenge is
challenge.
for you to like, share, and subscribe to All About Moments podcast on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social media platforms.
Yes,
That's a challenge.
absolutely.
We would love to connect with all of you on those platforms. And tell us how you've been flirting.
Yes. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode, and we love this conversation. I know I did. I had a good time. Abby was already talking about a part two. Next time, we will either do a part two or we'll be pulling something out of the jar. But trust me, you don't want to miss it. Until next time, keep love alive, keep it spicy, and most importantly, have fun with it. Love you all.